Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bismillah walhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. So inshallah, as we decided last week that Saturdays we'll keep it short because our dear sisters are not patient enough to keep quiet for too long. So half an hour, then some questions, and then inshallah we'll be done. Inshallah ta'ala, tonight we'll just reflect upon the shortest surah in the Quran, which is just 3 ayat. And this is a hadith in Sahih Muslim, in Abu Dawood and Nasa'i and others. Anas radiallahu anhu said that once the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, after he offered his salah in Medina, he was resting. He dozed off. He was leaning against the pillars of the walls of the masjid, and he dozed off. So after waking up from his nap, he had a big smile on his face. So the Sahaba who were present, they asked him what had made him so happy after, from his nap. So then he said that a surah just got revealed to me. Inna a'ataynaka al-Kawthar fasalli li rabbika wanhar inna shani'aka huwa al-abtar. That's the shortest surah in the Quran, Surah Al-Kawthar, and it consists of just 3 ayat. And then, after telling the Sahaba these 3 verses, he asked them, Hal tadruna mal Kawthar? Do you know, or atadruna mal Kawthar? Do you know what Al-Kawthar is? Do you know what this is? Because Allah said, Inna a'ataynaka al-Kawthar. Indeed, to you, we gave Al-Kawthar. So then, the way the Sahaba were always, if they didn't know an answer, they didn't make anything up, right? They used to always say, Allahu wa Rasuluhu a'lam. Allah and His Messenger know best. And this is something that is extremely, extremely important for anyone who sincerely wants to gain knowledge, right? There is no shame in not knowing something. This is completely fine. Sometimes, or in our generation, a lot of times, many people have a problem in admitting that they don't know something. So if they're asked, they start thinking, I don't want to look bad in front of so-and-so, so let me just make something up, whatever may be the case. But this is a contradiction to the iman that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded us with. If you don't know something, simply just say, Allah knows best, I don't know. There's nothing wrong, right? There is no shame in not knowing something. Even though our generation, we have adopted a lifestyle where we're all jack of all trades, but the master of none, right? This is what has happened to us. Like for example, even once Imam Malik rahimahullah, and he is one of the great scholars of Islam, somebody had come to him from out of town, from out of country, that this is the great Imam of that time. He's in Medina, let me come ask him some questions. He brought 37 questions that he wanted to ask the biggest living scholar of that time. So he traveled far to ask him 37 questions. To 34 of those questions, Imam Malik said, La adri, I don't know, Allah knows best. Come back to me later. At this very moment, I don't have the answer, right? So the scholars, even till today, if you ask somebody a question, if the alim doesn't remember it from the top of his head, he'll say, give me a call or meet with me tomorrow, whatever may be the case. That's from the humbleness of seeking knowledge. And that's what you are supposed to be doing, right? This is a characteristic of those who sincerely want to learn, right? The first step to learning is to admit that I don't know anything. I need to learn. This is step 1. If you already think that you know stuff, you're not going to learn anything, right? So the Sahaba, all of them, all the time, when the Prophet ﷺ would ask these type of questions, because this is also from the Sunnah, the teacher can ask the students questions to see if they're paying attention or not. So anytime the Prophet ﷺ would ask a question they didn't know, they would immediately reply, Allahu wa rasuluhu a'lam. Now we cannot say Allah and His Messenger know best. We only say Allah knows best because the Prophet ﷺ has passed away. Right? So we don't say that part, but we just say Allahu a'lam, that Allah knows best. And last point of this issue, even if you read the fatwa of all the scholars, even think of anyone's name that you can, at the end of their fatwa you will always see Wallahu a'lam. They give the answer exactly with the ayah, with the hadith, but still at the bottom when they sign off they'll say Wallahu a'lam, and Allah knows best. So this is the attribute of the person who actually has knowledge. But the jahil one, he won't ever affirm that he doesn't have much knowledge. But anyway, so this is something very important that we always have to remember. That if you don't know something, simply just say, I don't know, Allah knows best. So anyways, then the Prophet ﷺ replied or explained to them what Al-Kawthar is. That فَإِنَّهُ نَهَرٌ وَعَدَنِيهِ رَبِّي عَزَّ وَجَلَّ. This is a river that is a wa'ada, just for me. This is a promise from my Lord. It's a river that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has promised for me. عَلَيْهِ خَيْرٌ كَثِيرٌ. And in it is a lot of goodness. The meaning of Kawthar, one of the meanings, is something that is good, or everything. Anything and everything that is khair is included in the meaning of the word Al-Kawthar. Specifically, that's the general meaning. Specific meaning, this is a specific river in Jannah that will flow out, as we shall see and discuss more. But these are the two meanings. Generally speaking, Al-Kawthar refers to everything that is khair from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, when Allah says in the ayah that إِنَّا أَعْطَيْنَاكَ الْكَوْثَرَ, indeed we have given to you Al-Kawthar, this refers to the general, every single thing that is khair, as well as the specific, which is that river that the Prophet ﷺ is talking about. So this is, some of it is for everybody, and some of it is for only the Prophet ﷺ specifically. In another hadith in Sahih al-Bukhari, also narrated by Anas radiallahu anhu, the Prophet ﷺ said, when he was describing Al-Kawthar, that بَيْنَمَا أَنَا أَسِيرُ فِي الْجَنَّةِ, while I was walking in paradise, and this is referring to the night of Al-Mi'raj, the journey Al-Isra wal-Mi'raj. So he's describing to them, as he was walking through Jannah, إِذَا أَنَا بِنَهَرٍ حَافَتَاهُ قِبَدُ الدُّرِّ الْمُجَوَّفِ. He passed by a river with two banks, of which there were tents made of hollow pearls. So the banks of the rivers had, tents made of hollow pearls were filled on the two banks. قُلْتُ مَا هَذَا يَا جِبْرِيلُ. So I asked Jibreel alayhi salam, what is this? And Jibreel replied, هَذَا الْكَوْثَرُ الَّذِي أَعْطَاكَ رَبُّكَ. This is the Kawthar which your Lord has given to you. Right? So it flows out of Jannah. So from this hadith we clearly understand that this is a river inside Jannah. The two banks have pearls, tents. The tents are pearls. This river, it flows out of Jannah to the area of Yawm al-Qiyamah. The river will flow out on the day of resurrection, and it will form a tank, a pool, which is known as the Hawd of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So that Hawd will be present on Yawm al-Qiyamah. People will see it. But the river is inside Jannah, and it will flow out and form a pool of water. Abdullah ibn Amr radiallahu anhu, in other ahadith in Bukhari, Muslim and others, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam said in those ahadith that Hawdi masiratu shahr, just the pool, this is not the river, the Hawd that will be present on Yawm al-Qiyamah, just my Hawd, my pool, that is a month's journey, that it will take you one whole month non-stop. And understand the context of this statement. What did the people use to travel at that time? Horses, right? They would travel by horse from one city to another. So let's say you're riding a horse and the horse is traveling non-stop, doesn't even pause for 1 second, and it's going for an entire month. That is the distance of this hawd of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Ma'uhu abyadu min al-laban. The water is whiter than milk. The color, it's whiter than milk. وَرِيحُهُ أَطْيَبُ مِنَ الْمِسْكِ. And the fragrance, the smell that comes from this water, it is more fragrant than the best musk that you can think of or you have smelled. وَكِيزَانُهُ كَنُجُومِ السَّمَاءِ. And the drinking cups that are around this pool, it's like the stars in the sky, meaning countless, right? When we look up in a clear night when stars are visible, you'll run out of numbers, but you will not run out of stars. So that's how the drinking cups placed around the hawd of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam are. It's like the stars in the sky. وَمَنْ شَرِبَ مِنْهَا فَلَا يَظْمَأُ أَبَدًا. And whoever drinks from this pool of mine once, he will never be thirsty again. So this is on the day of resurrection. It's not inside Jannah yet, right? So this is just on Yawm al-Qiyamah, when people reach that, are blessed to reach that situation. 1 cup of water from this will never make you thirsty ever again. And in other ahadith collected in the Musnad of Ahmed, the Prophet ﷺ said, وَأَحْلَى مِنَ الْعَسَلِ. It is sweeter than honey. So the color is whiter than milk, the taste is sweeter than honey, the smell is more fragrant than musk. So of course this is something that eyes or our minds cannot comprehend. So anything related to al-ghayb, the future, life after death, you have to remember that these are things that, like the Prophet ﷺ said, describing paradise itself. This is a hadith in Sahih Muslim. Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu narrates this hadith, that the Prophet ﷺ said regarding Jannah, that these are things مَا لَا عَيْنٌ رَأَتْ, that no eye has ever seen, right? Or وَلَا أُذُنٌ سَمِعَتْ, or no ears have heard, or no heart can ever comprehend, right? This is ilmul ghayb. So even when Allah says you'll have fruits, you'll have rumman, right? Allah mentioned in the Quran that people in paradise will have rumman, meaning a pomegranate. So rumman of the dunya, don't think that, okay, we're already eating this here, it must be the same rumman in paradise. Absolutely not. Because that rumman, no eyes has seen yet, no ears have heard about it, no heart has ever felt it. So anything that you see, the words that you see from hadith and the Quran, referring to the day of judgment or Jannah or Jahannam, always remember, this is our aqeedah of Ahlul Sunnah. It is not the thing of this dunya. Don't start comparing. Only Allah knows best the true essence of that element, right? So if it's an apple, the apple of Jannah is far different. You cannot even compare it with the apple of this dunya, right? Or even the fire, right? The fire, like look at the fire of the dunya, it burns us, we can't even touch it. But the fire of Jahannam is far, far more hot, far more intense, right? So these are things that we cannot comprehend. These are issues of al-ghayb, and we all want to, inshallah ta'ala, experience the pleasure, not the punishments. So this is something very important that you remember. Like water that's whiter than milk, sweeter than honey, more fragrant than musk. This is not something that we have ever come across, and we will not come across in this dunya life. So the people on the day of judgment, there will be different things that will be happening. And a few months ago at the masjid I had discussed the whole hadith about the shafa'ah, that's the first thing that's going to happen. When people are resurrected, they will be running around, nervous, screaming, what's going on? And they know what's going to happen with the sun so close above their heads, them sweating. This is enough of a torture, right? And they will all be resurrected, naked, uncircumcised, barefooted, as the hadith in Bukhari and Muslim mentions by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right? So this is the situation of the people, and then they will run. All the people, all of Bani Adam will gather together and will say, let us go to our father Adam alayhi salam, who was the first man. Let's go to him. He will make shafa'ah for us for the hisab to start. So on and so forth. So it's a long hadith that we had discussed before. After that, there are certain things that will be happening on the Day of Judgment. Then, after the kuffar, the mushrikun are taken care of, Allah will focus on the Muslims. And the Muslims will be judged. The very first thing they'll be asked about is salah. And so on and so forth, until they're all cleaned up, filtered, this, that. Then you'll have the issue of the sirat, which is a bridge over Jahannam. As the Prophet ﷺ said, the bridge is thinner than the hair and sharper than the knife's edge. That's how thin that bridge and sharp it is. And as Allah mentioned in Surah Hadid, that Allah will provide, and it's dark. It's over Jahannam and the whole area is dark, completely black. But the mu'minun will be given flashlights by Allah, and they will cross that bridge. They'll be able to see. The hypocrites will not be given lights, and they'll of course trip and fall straight into Jahannam. After that, and there is some ikhtilaf between the scholars whether this hawd of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is after the sirat incident, or will it be before getting onto the bridge? Right? So there's a little bit of difference of opinion regarding exactly where this hawd will be placed. Is it before the bridge or after people have crossed that bridge? But anyways, the people, the Muslims, not the mushrikun, the Muslims will then gather towards this hawd, or they will walk towards this hawd when they see it. They'll see that this is the pool of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and as Abdullah ibn Abbas narrates that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that "Ana faratukum ala al-hawd," I will precede all of you at the hawd. Meaning the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam will be the very first one who will be sitting close to that pool, next to that pool, waiting for the Muslims to come and drink from his pool. He'll be sitting next to the cups, waiting to fill those cups up and giving it to the believers to drink. فَلْيُنْفَعَنَّ إِلَيَّ رِجَالٌ مِّنْكُمْ. So some people amongst you will be brought to me. حَتَّى إِذَا أَهْوَيْتُ لِأُنَاوِلَهُمْ اُقْتُلِجُوا دُونِي. They will be pulled away from me by force. I will see them, and in other ahadith, the Prophet ﷺ said that I will recognize them, and they will recognize me. How will I recognize them? Because they will have signs. People who pray, they'll, sometimes we have sajda marks, even in this dunya. Or people, when we make wudu, the Prophet ﷺ said that each of these parts, your ankles, your wrists, your fingers, they will be glowing. That these are the people who used to make wudu 5 times a day or more, right? At least 5 times a day for their salah. So these will be the signs. You'll be glowing. There will be spots. These are the symbols of people who used to make wudu and offer salah. So the Prophet ﷺ will recognize them because of these signs. So those people will recognize the Prophet ﷺ. They'll know that this is Rasulullah sitting next to the hawd. So they'll come to him. But then Allah will send angels to forcefully take them away. فَيُؤْخَذُ بِنَاسٍ مِّن دُونِي. And some people, they will be taken away from me, dragged on their foreheads and stuff like that. And the Prophet ﷺ said in other ahadith that لَا يَرِدُ عَلَيَّ أَقْوَامٌ أَعْرِفُهُمْ وَيَعْرِفُونِ. There will come people whom I will recognize and they will recognize me. So clearly indicating from all these ahadith that he's talking about Muslims, right? Not the disbelievers, Muslims. ثُمَّ يُحَالُ بَيْنِي وَبَيْنَهُمْ. Then a barrier will be set between me and them. And فَأَقُولُ. Then he's going to shout out. And different narrations mention different statements by the Prophet ﷺ. In one hadith, he will cry out, أَيْ رَبِّي أَصْحَابِي. O Lord, these are my companions. or Ay Rabbi Ummati, O Lord, this is my ummah, or Ay Rabbi innahum minni, O Lord, these people are from me, meaning these are from my nation, the Muslims. They are from my followers. So the Prophet ﷺ will be stressed out. He'll be in grief and he'll be crying out as he sees that the people are being forcefully taken away from coming close to him. Then, فَيَقُولُ, Allah will reply to the Prophet ﷺ, إِنَّكَ لَا تَدْرِي مَا أَحْدَثُوا بَعْدَكَ. You have no idea what these people introduced into the religion after you were gone. So Allah will forcefully take them away. And in another narration, the Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّكَ لَا عِلْمَ لَكَ بِمَا أَحْدَثُوا بَعْدَكَ إِنَّهُمْ ارْتَدُّوا عَلَى أَدْبَارِهِمُ الْقَحْقَارَ. That you have no knowledge as to what they innovated, they changed in the religion after you left, and or some of them even became apostates, murtaddin. They even left the religion completely. So ahdathu, this is to introduce, to innovate, to introduce bid'ah into the religion. That things that the Prophet ﷺ never did, never approved of, but people have taken that as part of their religion, right? Like, for example, let's say the issue of the Mawlid. Millions of people every year are celebrating the so-called birthday of the Prophet ﷺ. There's not one hadith that says the Prophet himself would celebrate his birthday, or his wives, or his daughters, or his companions, while he was living or after his death. Not a single one of them celebrated his birthday. And he never told anyone to celebrate his birthday, let alone the fact that there's no authentic evidence of exactly what date he was born. Right? There's no authentic hadith saying he was born on exactly such and such date. The death day we know, but not the birthday. But anyways, so this is an aspect of bid'ah that unfortunately has spread far and wide in the ummah, right? Sometimes you see people, subhanAllah, like I was looking at some YouTube videos in the streets of London. People rented a GTR, colored it green, or found a green GTR, or they put lights on top of it. Everybody's wearing green and dancing, and Allahumma salli ala, they're dancing in the streets, right? This is what they're doing. And they think that this is worshiping Allah. So bid'ah is anything that you do thinking that this is a religious action with which Allah will be pleased with. That's a bid'ah, right? Any innovation in terms of religion, using phones, computers, this is a bid'ah linguistically. The word bid'ah linguistically means to innovate. There's nothing wrong. Cars, planes, computers, technology, these are also bid'ah in terms of dunya terms. This is not what Allah is shunning or the Prophet ﷺ is shunning, right? Because some people, when you try to explain to them this concept of bid'ah, they'll start saying, well, why are you guys using microphone in the masjid? The Prophet ﷺ never used a microphone. This has nothing to do with ibadah. This is just to get our voices heard. There's nothing wrong with this, right? It's not an action that is an ibadah that we consider. Whether you use a microphone or not, no one thinks that, if I use the microphone, I'll earn the pleasure of Allah more. No one thinks that way, right? So this is not a religious issue. Dunya issues, you want to innovate, make life easier, simpler, whatever the case is, no problem. Allah has left it open. But when it comes to religious issues, we have no right to introduce anything into the religion that the Prophet ﷺ never did, spoke about, or approved. Right? So then the Prophet ﷺ, when Allah will make this entire thing very clear to him, that these people are being taken away, they're being prevented from coming to the hawd of Rasulullah ﷺ and drinking from it, simply because they used to do bid'ah in this life. So it's a huge, huge issue. And Imam al-Shafi'i, rahimahullah, he said in a very wise, profound statement, that when people do bid'ah, it implies either of the two things. Either it implies that the Prophet ﷺ hid information from us, that he did not fulfill his duty because he never did this act of ibadah. How did you discover this? Meaning the Prophet must have hid this information. He didn't fulfill his duty. And if anyone thinks that way, this person's a kafir. If you think like this about the Prophet ﷺ. Or it implies we know more than the Prophet ﷺ. That why, no, this is an act of ibadah, let's do this. But the Prophet never did it. We're not going to be better slaves of Allah than him. Right? Or like the other thing that many people in my part of the world, they'll do, the Shab-e Barat, the biggest night. This is literally the translation of it. Even though the biggest night in Islam is Laylatul Qadr in Ramadan, but they even title it as Shab-e Barat, the great night. Right? And what are people doing? They'll pray 100 rak'at and they recite Surah Ikhlas, and this is what they're doing, but then they're asleep before Salatul Fajr. This is what happens, right? Because they eat so much halwa and paratha, it makes them fall asleep. Right? They don't have the energy left to pray Fajr. So, but this is what happens. This is the reality, and it's a sad reality that many people. Hey, the kids over here. Kids. Yeah, just look this way. Stop playing. So play after when you eat the dinner and after dinner. Don't worry. So these are things that people do thinking that these are religious acts. But the Prophet never did it. Do you know better than the Prophet? No. Did the Prophet hide information? No. So therefore we should not do these acts of bid'ah. It's not going to earn the pleasure of Allah. Rather it earns the curse of Allah in this dunya. And look what happens to those people on Yawm al-Qiyamah. That they will be forcefully taken away from drinking from the hawd, from this beautiful water that the Prophet ﷺ described. So then, as all this is made clear, فَأَقُولُ, so the Prophet ﷺ will say on Yawm al-Qiyamah, سُحْقًا سُحْقًا لِمَنْ بَدَّلَ بَعْدِي. Away from me, those who changed after me. So then he'll know. In the beginning, he's crying, what's happening to these people? Why are they being taken away? They're from me, they're my companions, they're my ummah. But when Allah explains to him that these people changed their religion after you left, then he'll say, be off, far away. Just take them away from me. I have nothing to do with people who have changed after I have left. So bid'ah is a huge crime. And this is how, let's say, the biggest example that we can give, the best example, are the Christians. They lost their entire religion because of bid'ah. Not a single Christian today knows what exactly Isa a.s. told them to do. Right? They have completely changed their religion. Introduced ideas that Isa a.s. never spoke of, never in his wildest imagination, ever. But this is what the Christians have done. This is the danger of bid'ah, that people lose their religion completely. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected this final religion and didn't protect Christianity in the sense that Allah preserved the text of the Quran. If someone does something, we have the Quran exactly like it is, the way it was in the lifetime of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allah preserved the ahadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam through the hands of the Sahaba and the scholars. So the deen was preserved and is preserved by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So therefore, if someone does anything wrong, we can immediately find out that this is haram or bid'ah, this is not part of our religion. Because our texts have been preserved by Allah Himself. So this is how we know. A simple thing, anything that you want to do, you look at it, is it in the Quran, is it in the Hadith? If it is, alhamdulillah. If it's not, no need, we don't do it. Doing it is actually sinful. Because shaitan comes to you, let's suppose, let's say, if people were to gather here and everybody's chanting their dua, let's say 10 people sit in a circle, and each of them starts with a dua and they're finishing one another's sentences and they're making dua this way. And then they'll say, and if we say this is a bid'ah, okay, then they'll argue, well, we're making dua. Yes, the concept of dua is good. This is from the religion. You make dua to Allah. Excellent, no problem. But the way you're making dua is not legislated. So everything that you do, this is how you do the litmus test. This is what you have to do with any act of ibadah, right? So anything that you want to do, like someone, you're not going to come, let's say we prayed Salatul Isha right now, no one's going to think of intentionally praying 5 raka'at. The more you pray, the better for you, right? So why don't you add another raka'at to Isha? Make it 5. Even though praying, the more you pray, the better for you. But you cannot do this. Why? Because the Prophet ﷺ is the one who restricted the number to 4 raka'at for Salatul Isha. He's the one who legislated this ruling, that this is it. This is how much you're going to pray for Isha. For Maghrib it's 3, so on and so forth. So everything in the religion, the Prophet ﷺ, he showed how to do it. Either Allah restricted in the Quran, or Allah restricted through the sunnah of His Messenger. So this is why we have principles when it comes to Sharia. Sharia meaning laws of the dunya, Shari'i things from the dunya. Every single thing is halal, unless there is clear evidence in the Quran or authentic sunnah saying such and such is haram. Then we say it's haram. Like for example, let's say when it comes to drinking, Allah said the only thing that is haram is drinks that intoxicate your mind. Besides that, any type of drink from the thousands of fruits that Allah has given to us, you want to drink 1,000 kinds of juices, no problem for you. The only one thing that's haram, make sure you do not turn it into an intoxicant. That's it. Food. Few animals are haram for us. Like sometimes people ask, can I eat this? Can I eat that? As long as it's eating grass, it's not carnivorous, a herbivore, meaning the animals that eat plants, go ahead and eat them. You won't have a chance to eat all the animals because some animals we don't have access to here, right? But Allah has allowed so many types of food to eat. So in Shari'i context, everything is halal unless we have evidence saying such and such a thing is haram, right? Like in the khutbah I was mentioning, men can wear whatever you want as long as you cover your awrah. 2 things are forbidden for you: silk and gold. These are for women. That's it, right? You want to wear $500 Versace shirts? No problem. If you have the money, go ahead and do it. Allah allowed it for you, right? If you can get it in a halal way. So anything that you want, you can wear for men. Don't wear silk, don't wear gold. As long as it covers your awrah properly, no problem. Go wear whatever you want, right? So many things in dunya terms, in the Shari'i context, is legal, is allowed, because there's no evidence saying such and such a thing is haram. But when it comes to ibadah, everything is haram unless there is evidence saying that this is what you have to do. So it's the exact opposite, right? In dunya terms, you can't run like that when I'm giving a talk. So, what's it called? So in ibadah terms, everything is haram unless there is evidence from the Quran and the Sunnah saying that this ibadah or this is considered an ibadah and you can do it. In dunya terms, everything is halal unless there is evidence saying it's haram. So 2 opposite things. So I'll repeat it one more time so it's clear. In terms of dunya terms, everything is halal unless there is evidence saying it's haram. When it comes to ibadah, worshipping Allah, everything is haram unless there is evidence in the Quran and Sunnah that this is what you're supposed to be doing, right? So this is the 2 principles that we have. So anyways, moving on, getting back to Al-Kawthar. So the Prophet ﷺ, he described this, that inna a'tainaka al-Kawthar. Al-Kawthar, we said, it refers to a few things, 3 things specifically. the abundant goodness, anything that is khair from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the specific river in Jannah, as well as the third thing is the hawd of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam on the day of resurrection. So these are the three meanings of Al-Kawthar. Then the next sentence or the next ayah, فَصَلِّ لِرَبِّكَ وَانْحَرْ. So therefore pray to your Lord and sacrifice. So what does this mean? After Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned that He has been given all goodness, He's been given Al-Kawthar, the very next statement is فَصَلِّ لِرَبِّكَ وَانْحَرْ. Therefore pray to Allah, to thank Him, to be grateful to Him. Offer your salah to show you're thankful to your Lord for blessing you with all these things, for blessing you with Al-Kawthar. So this is one meaning, that you pray to Allah alone. فَصَلِّ لِرَبِّكَ وَانْحَرْ. And you sacrifice to your Lord alone. You cannot pray for someone else's sake. This is shirk. Nor can you go slaughter for someone else's sake. This is shirk. Like many times you find people, again, unfortunately, millions of people with Muslim names. They'll go to a town in India called Ajmer, which is a gathering place of all types of mazar. Even Hindus and Buddhists are going there making sujood in front of the graves that the Muslims are also doing the same thing for, right? And people go there, they're slaughtering sheep because his son is sick. I need to slaughter the sheep for this person here. That meat is obviously haram, and that type of slaughtering is shirk. You can only slaughter for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? So, فَصَلِّ لِرَبِّكَ وَانْحَرْ. Pray for your Lord, for the sake of, to your Lord alone, and you sacrifice to your Lord alone. And also Abdullah ibn Abbas said that this also is in reference to Eid al-Adha, that you pray first and then you offer your sacrifice for those who want to do the sacrifice. Then the last ayah, the third ayah in this surah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that inna shani aka huwa al-abtar. Indeed, anyone, and this is again for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There are so many people who mocked the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and in the Arab culture back then in Jahiliyyah, al-abtar means the one who is cut off. Al-abtar, this was a title for any man who did not have sons. Because they would say your lineage is now cut off. There is no one to carry your name. This was an aspect of Jahiliyyah, which unfortunately exists till today, right? In many cultures, they think this way, that I had only daughters, that's the end of my lineage. What's wrong with you? No, you'll have grandkids, right? They don't think that. They think that they need to have sons in order to carry the family name. Or, in many cultures, if they have sons, the son carry their father's name, but the daughter gets some weird name that's not related to the family. People still do this, and this is a major sin. That how do you just disown your daughter with a name that's not related to you, right? People do this still today. But anyways, the mushrikun, they called the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam al-abtar because he did not have any grown sons. Right? How many sons did the Prophet ﷺ have? Quiz time.
2, but both of them died.
What were their names? Okay, Qasim, because that was his kunya, Abul Qasim. Qasim, Ibrahim, and Abdullah. Okay, so anyways, so this is so the Prophet ﷺ, the sons that he had, they all died as infants, as toddlers. But the daughters, Ruqayya, Kulthum, Zainab, and Fatima, these are the daughters of the Prophet ﷺ. So I'm going to repeat again, remember these names. These names are more important than the names of your best friends. Alright, so you had Kulthum, Zainab, Ruqayya, and Fatima, radiyallahu anhum. So the daughters of the Prophet ﷺ were the ones that grew up, got married, and of course Fatima radiallahu anha had children, Hassan and Hussein. So, but his sons, they died at infancy and while they were toddlers. So the mushrikun, they would insult him that this is the man who has no sons. He's cut off. He is al-abtar. He has no one to carry his name. So Allah says in this ayah that inna shani aka huwa al-abtar. That those people who are calling you abtar, they are the ones who are actually cut off. Cut off from what? From the rahmah of Allah, cut off from His reward, cut off from Jannah. They're the ones who are completely cut off. And throughout history, this is something amazing. Throughout history, starting from Abu Jahl and Abu Lahab, every single person that mocked the Prophet ﷺ, that criticized him, made a career out of mocking our Prophet, Allah exposed him in the worst of ways in this dunya. Allah will take care of those who attack His Prophet, right? Many times we find Muslims go crazy because somebody drew a cartoon, a caricature that they make. First of all, every Muslim needs to know that this image that they make, whether it's Danish or other European or whatever magazine, you have to remember something. This picture or this image is not the image of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's by default. This is not his face, right? So who cares what they're doing? We cannot react in a violent way. And everyone who does these type of things, Allah will take care of those people. And He has. Look at all these people. Like there was a whole group of former ex-Muslims. And they had taken different people. There was, what was his name? Walid Shabat, if I remember correctly. They portrayed him, they brought him on CNN and everything. A former Palestinian terrorist. Right? This is a former, and he has left Islam, this, that. He's criticizing the Prophet. Oh, this Muhammad, he's a terrorist. This is the religion of terrorism. Thank God I found Jesus and I left, blah, 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 blah. Within 2 years, he got imprisoned by the same American government that promoted him because of $500-some thousand of tax fraud. This is how Allah took care of him, right? Then there was a fake Turkish ex-Muslim, right? Same thing. Money laundering, money embezzlement from this church to that church. Within a few years, Allah exposed him. The FBI raided his house. Every one of these people that were fake ex-Muslims, criticizing the Prophet, mocking him, making up lies, right? Allah is the one who exposed all of them. The same government that promoted them is the government that imprisoned them, right? So this is how Allah takes care of those criminals who mock His final Prophet and Messenger. So Allah took this responsibility upon Himself. No one can ever tarnish His name. Look, subhanAllah, even though they criticize Islam, they demonize Islam in the media, the number one name in the entire world is Muhammad. This is the most common name in the entire world. No matter how much the mushrikun want to run away, they will not be able to run away. They're stuck with him, right? You can't. What can you do? You criticize Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but guess what? His name is the number one name in the whole world, right? And Muslims are not even the majority of the people, right? Mushrikun are, out of the 7 billion humans, let's say they say 2 billion Muslims. Okay, you still got 5 billion non-Muslims, but still a Muslim name, and that too, the name of Muhammad is the number one name in the whole world, right? So this is something that we have to remember, that don't ever go crazy. If someone is attacking your Prophet, criticizing him, speak with him intellectually, debate with him, give him dawah. And if he's someone who is not in the right frame of mind, leave. Talk to him later if he's still interested. But remove yourself from that gathering, because sometimes people think, no, I have to defend the Prophet by doing something violent. No, the Prophet told us don't act in a violent way. So you cannot contradict his sunnah and say, I love the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? Which is, going back to the example I gave to the Mawlid. When you tell the people who are doing the Mawlid that this is a bid'ah, they start screaming and shouting, you have no shame, you don't love the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I love him. This is what they say, right? So you cannot prove your love for the Prophet by doing things that he forbade, right? That doesn't make any sense. Just like with our parents. Oh, I love my father and mother, but then you never ever listen to a single word they say. This is fake love, right? This is fake love, right? So sometimes, most of the times, you have to listen to your parents, especially when they tell you to do the right things. That's good, right? If they tell you to do crazy things or wrong things, that's different. But inshallah ta'ala, most parents would not do that, right? But anyways, so this is the meaning of this surah. The shortest surah in the Quran, 3 ayat. But look what it covers. It covers the honor of the Prophet ﷺ. It covers the aspect of the importance of the sunnah, warning against bid'ah, and also warning us and giving us glad tidings. That imagine if you follow his sunnah, stick to his footsteps the best way you can, to the best of your ability, step by step, then inshallah ta'ala you have a great reward, a great cup of water waiting for you. And then of course this river is in Jannah, and you will get to swim in that river or whatever you want to do, whatever it is you want to do, right? In Jannah inshallah. So any questions? And sisters, as usual, write your questions forth.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Is it all right to name your child Kawthar or Jannat or other such words?
This is a good question. I was going to say good name. There are names, even when it comes to naming your children, there are names that the Prophet ﷺ encouraged. And these are ahadith, again, in Bukhari and Muslim and others. Like, for example, what he said about naming your son, the Prophet ﷺ said the best names that you can give to your son is like Abdul Rahman, Abdullah, the slave of, and with one of Allah's names, Abdul Aziz, Abdul Hakim, Abdul Azim, so many names, the 99 names of Allah. So this is the best name that you can give to your sons, and throughout his life, he is referred to as a slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? An abid, Abdullah, so on and so forth. Then also the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the name Harith is a very good name for your son. Harith is someone who cultivates. So Harith, Harris in English, right? Probably. But Harith, he's the cultivator. What's he cultivating? His life, in order to get the reward, reap the benefits in the hereafter. So this is a good name. For girls, the same. That she is a Amatullah, right? A female slave of Allah. Or you can name her after the pious women of the past, like Maryam, Asiya, Fatima, Khadija, so on and so forth. Same thing with the boys. So after naming them Abdullah, Abdul Rahman, meaning anything with Allah's name, Abdul, one of Allah's names, then the best names, he can be named after the prophets of Allah, right? So these are the etiquettes of naming your children. These are the best of the names encouraged by the Prophet himself. Right? So these are the type of names you would want to keep. You would want to keep. Right? Now going to the question. That names like Kawthar or Jannah and things like that. Certain names are haram, of course. Like, for example, many people, especially in my country, they have the name Ghulam Rasul. This is not a good name. Right? Ghulam is like a slave. You're not the messenger's slave. You're Allah's slave. Right? Or in certain, I've seen a tribe in certain Arab country, the name was Abdul Rasul. This is clear shirk name. Right? But this is, I don't know how they got that name. Right? But anyways, so those type of names are haram. Right? You can't be Abdul something or Abdul Shams, right? The slave of the sun. And then you have names that are makruh, that are disliked. I'm trying to think of some name. Let's say names like Taqi'uddin, right? He is the muttaqi of the religion, right? Or things like that. Salahuddin, that he is the one who will make the Islah for the whole religion. Right? These are names. This is another hadith in Bukhari. The Prophet ﷺ, he changed one of the names, that this is overpraising yourself. That's why it's makruh, right? That someone who is named like this, Nuruddin, he is the light of the religion. This is an exaggeration. This is an exaggeration. For sure we're sinners. Sinners will not be the light of the religion, or who knows what this person might be. The ulama, of course, they're the lights of the religion, but anyways, these names, these type of names are makruh to have. And then you have certain other names that are titles specifically for individuals that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given. Like you will find some people, their name is Ruhul Qudus, but this is the title of Jibreel. Allah specifically calls Jibreel alayhi salam Ruhul Qudus. Right? This is his title. No one else is allowed to have this name. That's his title. Or Khalilur Rahman. These are the titles of Ibrahim and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Specific title given to Ibrahim alayhi salam and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That Khalilur Rahman. Have the name Khalil, no problem, but they make a mess by choosing the exact same title, right? So these are names that you should avoid, right? Now, as far as so this was, I know it was a little bit more than what the question asked, but I wanted everybody to be clear with this. Now, if you already named your children based on one of these examples I gave, okay, no problem. You are ignorant about it. May Allah forgive you. But inshallah, any future children you have, name them correctly.
Imam, is there anything wrong with the name Abu Bakr or Abu Hurairah?
No, these are names after the Sahaba, which is fine to keep. And it's encouraged that these were the righteous people of the past. Inshallah, this name, you would want your son to imitate those people that you named them after. That's the whole hikmah behind it, right? Yeah.
If somebody is called named Abdul Karim, is it?
Yeah, Kareem, Al-Kareem is Allah's name.
Is it okay to address him only as Karim?
No, see, the thing is that's something. This again goes in the linguistic sense. Like someone can be Aziz, no problem. But Al-Aziz, this is Allah, right? So same thing. If someone is like the brother said, if someone is Mannan, he's Mannan. But Abdul Mannan, Al-Mannan, this is Allah. All right? Al-Hannan, this is Allah. Right? So you can't be named like that. That would be completely wrong, because that is specifically Allah's name. But you want to go just by Kareem without Al-Kareem, this is of course fine. No problem. Right?
Just the last follow-up.
Yeah.
If you find out one day that all your life you've had a son name or a makruh name or forbidden name, should you go ahead and have it changed or just live it?
No, live with it, because unless it's a name that is completely haram, your first name, you change it. But the family name, it stays with you because you didn't choose it. Allah made you born in that family. This is the name that you will be stuck with for the rest of your life. Changing the family name is a type of kufr, as the Prophet ﷺ said. So you're not allowed to change your family name no matter how bad it is. So this is most applicable and has been forgotten by the women of this ummah. That they adopted the Christian way of life. When a woman gets married, she takes her husband's name. This is from Christianity. This is haram to do in Islam. Because Allah chose you to be born in that family. That is the name that Allah gave you. You were born in that family. So you don't change to your husband's family name. You're not from his family. You married the person, no problem. But you are still your father's daughter, right? So this is something that many women and families have forgotten. But this is clearly from Christianity. And there's a reason why Christians do that. Because in the Old Testament or the New Testament, the Christians had the belief that, of course, women are second-class citizens. Once they get married and take their husband's name, now they become some worthwhile human being. That's how Christians thought of women and still do. But then they say that Islam is, what's it called? Oppressive towards women. So even this example of name change. Allah has honored the Muslim woman. You keep your own name even after you get married. right? So that's something, inshallah ta'ala. Hopefully when your daughters grow up and get married, they keep your name. Don't change it to your son-in-law's name. Okay. I think this was by a kid. When a man is married, is it haram to hug other females, meaning non-relatives and or relatives as well? And who should they hug? This goes for females too. Regardless of whether you're married or not, you're not allowed to hug non-mahram women, all right? Or for the sisters, you're not allowed to hug non-mahram men, right? So mahram is someone, let's answer the question based on how it came first. So if you're married, a man can only hug his wife, his own mother, grandmother, aunt, daughter, or if he has any sister through rada'a, which is through breastfeeding, right? Maternal or paternal aunt, a mother, grandmother, that's it. You don't hug your cousin. Cousin is not a mahram because you can marry your cousin. Anyone you can marry is not a mahram. That's what it is. Anyone you cannot marry is your mahram, and of course through marriage, your wife and your in-law, mother-in-law, becomes your mahram as well. So you can hug your mother-in-law as well. I don't know how many men would want to do that, but it's allowed. No, alhamdulillah, I'm sure there are good mother-in-laws out there too, right? But anyways, so same thing when the woman gets married, your father-in-law becomes your mahram for life, and you can hug your father-in-law, no problem. Just the father-in-law, that is it. Not the brother-in-law, not the uncle-in-law, not cousin-in-law or anything. Just the father-in-law and grandfather-in-law. That's it, through marriage. And same thing as a woman, you can hug your father, your son, your husband, father-in-law, grandfather-in-law, your own uncles, paternal or maternal, your nephews, no problem. These are your the mahram. But anyone else, you cannot. So, and if you're not married, you cannot hug any person from the opposite gender except those who are your mahrams. How long are the days in the afterlife? It is eternal. There is no death. I think that question was from a young person. But that's a good question. Like, the afterlife is eternal. There is no death. There is no end. It's forever and ever and ever and ever. It's never ending. Okay? So that's why you want to do good deeds now, so that you can enjoy happiness in paradise forever and ever and ever. Inshallah ta'ala. Okay. Are you allowed to say dua, adhkar as a group? Are you allowed to do tasbih as a group? They do this in the school, and I was wondering if we were doing anything wrong. If you are teaching children, and you take a bunch of kids and you're teaching them after salah, okay kids, we say subhanallah 33 times, let's hear you say it all. For the purpose of teaching, if that is your niyyah, until they are taught, you're teaching them in a group setting, this is completely fine. They're children, you're making sure that they make their adhkar after every salah, you're teaching them to count, this is all fine. This is for the purpose of teaching. But once they all know, then of course you don't make the adhkar or the dua in a group, then it becomes a bid'ah. Everybody is supposed to make their individual dua and the dhikr, adhkar after salah. It's not done in a group. Same thing you are supposed to do in your house as well. As parents, you would sit your children down together and teach them, even though it seems like as if you're doing it in a group, but this is clearly for a specific purpose, to make sure your children are learning. That's it. The moment they learn, you would stop making this sitting. Yeah.
Is horse allowed to eat?
Horse? Yeah, it's allowed.
Because I'm wondering, because you have, like back then they used to like ride horses, and I'm wondering if you have to respect it.
No, you can eat, no problem, because it's something that eats plants. Is there more reward for a woman to make salah in the privacy of her home or to pray at the masjid? A woman gets more reward if she prays in the privacy of her own house. This is the clear, authentic hadith. However, we also have the hadith in Bukhari. If a woman wants to go to the masjid to offer salah, she cannot be prevented. You cannot, the husband or the men of the house cannot prevent her from going to the masjid to offer salah. Then we have other hadith from Aisha radiallahu anha. If women are going to the masjid to cause a nuisance, then of course they should be, that's for anybody. Any gender that comes to the masjid to disrupt the unity, to disrupt the peace, regardless of what gender, that person is allowed to be asked to leave. Okay, this is from our religion, because we don't want to bring destruction inside a masjid, right? So this is for both genders, not just women. So I hope this is clear. The woman gets more reward for praying in her house, and if she wants to come to the masjid to pray, she cannot be prevented from coming. Do names have an effect on personality? Yes, they do. If you keep good names, that's the whole point. That is the whole hikmah that the Prophet ﷺ was explaining. That if you name your children as Abdullah, your son, that they are the slave of Allah, it will remind them on a daily basis when you're calling them a slave of Allah, right? It will remind them, inshallah ta'ala, of who they are, what their purpose is. So this is something that is good. The name should have some type of effect on the personality, right? And this is what happens. Many times people might name their children after their favorite singer or actor or actress, and then they complain when the kid grows up that I have a rebel. Well, you named her after a rebel, right? Or named him after a rebel. So this is something from Allah. Does a wife have to get permission from her husband to go out? This is something, again, it's the rules of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that these are certain rules and orders to follow in order to keep everything in peace and intact. So the wife has to, this is an obligation upon her, she has to let her husband know where she's going out of the house, right? So even if your husband is at work, you're going to leave the house, you just let him know, I'm going to the grocery store, because this is not oppression. Allah forbid something happens to you and your husband has no idea where you are. Where is he supposed to go to? You have to think of the positives, right? Don't get brainwashed by the Western feminists. Oh, you're a woman. Why do you have to tell the man what you're doing? No, this is for your own safety, right? It's not that you're oppressed or you're being tortured. You just let somebody know, the guardian of you, which is your husband. He's your maintainer and your protector. Allah forbid if something happens, he'll know where to come look for you, or he'll know where your last place was. This is for the safety of the woman. So you let your husband know where you're going. If you're not married, you have to let your parents, your father know of what you're doing. If the brother is responsible, many brothers are not, let your brother, older brother know as well. That's not a problem, because the older brothers are supposed to develop, they are supposed to learn how to take care of their sisters as well. So this is from the rules of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this is better for the woman. Oh, I think she would. Now, for example, mall, parents' home, all of this, yes, you let your husband know. And if for any reason, there's a good reason for which your husband says, no, don't go, then you would have to listen and then discuss and see what type of situation can come about. Like, for example, because this was asked in the question, let's suppose anytime you visit your parents' house, you come back and argue with your husband for the next 4 days. If this is what happens to you because someone in your parents' home poisons your brain against your husband has every right to tell you, don't visit your parents' home frequently because it destroys our own marriage. So if you can keep a control of yourself, because not everybody will like your husband. Even the best husband, you might have some aunt, some cousin who has nothing better to do in life, and she'll start injecting poisons in your mind against your own husband. This is what ruins marriages. And that's an obligation. If a husband finds out that this is what's happening, otherwise they're very nice with each other, it is fard on you to listen to that to save your own marriage. So that's, I know it's an extreme case, but unfortunately it's also very common nowadays. So you have to be very careful of this. Because preserving your marriage is your first priority. Yeah.
Any gender that comes to the masjid to create fitna is not welcome. How about age? Children are complaining to me about this one child. I would like to know who his father is.
Yeah, inshallah we'll
Somebody needs to take care of it.
okay, inshallah. So if all other kids, no, that's also good. That if any child is bothering the other children, then of course we don't throw him out, but we inshallah take care of him in a different way. Inshallah. Question. Okay, men make women take care of their parents. Men make women take care of their parents and family, brothers and sisters. Wait, men make women take care of their parents and family. Why women cannot keep their parents if they need to? So I'm guessing the question is referring to that the man makes his wife take care of his parents and his family. Is that what the question is? Because that's what I'm understanding. That men make women take care of their parents and family. Why cannot women keep their parents if they need to?
Yeah, that's what
Yes, okay. So again, this is something, even if it's a surprising information for you, but this is the religion. It is not fard on any woman to serve her in-laws. This is our religion. I know it's a big cultural shock, but this is our religion. A woman doesn't get married to just go around becoming a servant for her father-in-law and mother-in-law. This is not from our religion. This is something from the Hindu cultures and other pagan cultures. Okay? A woman, her obligation is to serve her husband. This is what Allah commanded. So if she takes care of her husband, the children they have, which is her own children as well, she takes care of the house for the husband, she has done her religious obligation. Allah will not hold her into account. Okay? So this is as much as the woman is obligated to do. However, any woman, as a Muslim, you see other elderly Muslims, this is common sense. This is from your Iman. You see an elderly person, regardless of what the person is related to you or not, you would try to do something nice for that old person because this is a hadith, right? That he is not from us who has no rahmah towards children or no respect towards the elders. This is the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. So you respect your elders. If they need some type of help, you have time, do it, no problem. That's an Islamic duty that you're doing for a fellow Muslim who is old, who is weak. That's your intention and you're doing this. If you're doing it for this reason, no problem. But culturally speaking, many people think it is an obligation. Many times, culturally speaking, a couple may have been married for the past 5 years, but the wife was never able to make her favorite tea for her husband even once, but the father-in-law and mother-in-law is drinking that tea all the time. That is not right in Islam, because the relationship is between the wife and the husband. So if you can keep a balance, because many families have exaggerated, and this is what causes the problems. This is what causes the problems in the family, because not his job. If your father-in-law needs a cup of tea, he has a wife, which is your mother-in-law. Serve your husband. You still have to do it, right? This is where Allah rewards you. The husband and wife take care of each other. So if you do it in a balanced way, that for the sake of Islam, this is my Muslim brother, Muslim sister, your father-in-law and your mother-in-law, of course, are your Muslim brothers and sisters, and they're elderly, you take care of them, no problem, right? So the same thing with the husband when it comes to his in-laws as well, that there has to be a balance. You will never find a single Sahaba, let's say when Umar's son, Abdullah ibn Umar, got married, you're not going to find a single hadith where Umar is telling the wife of Abdullah ibn Umar, do this, do this, do this for me. No, you do stuff for your husband, right? So this is Islam. And this is what preserves the sanctity of a family, and no one gets overburdened. Husband and wife will not have problems. The in-laws and the daughter-in-law / the son-in-law will also not have problems, because there is a balance. There's the respect of Islam, but they all know the balance and the obligations given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is something that you would have to work on, inshallah ta'ala, to make it happen. How to deal with teens when they want to go to their Muslim friends' birthday parties. So this is, well, first of all, if you understand that celebrating birthdays is wrong, you would want your children, your sons and daughters, to also understand that same thing of Islam as well, because this is very important. And then he has to understand that if there is a party that is haram, bid'ah, whatever may be the case, or even if it's a halal party done in a haram way, if you know that that's the environment, your children have to listen to you. That religiously this environment is wrong. Don't go there. They have no choice. You're still providing food, shelter, and clothing for them. They have no choice but to listen to you for these good things. But you would have to explain to them why. Like, for example, sometimes it can happen. Maybe your daughter is going to someone's house. It's not a birthday, it's nothing, just an invite for dinner. But you know that some of the girls that come to that gathering specifically, they have some very bad ideas. They're not that great Islamically, and they may influence or harm your own daughter. You have to talk to your daughter openly. That, listen, so-and-so will say these type of things, don't listen. This is what it is. Some people are bad, some people are good, whatever may be the case. This is your obligation as a parent. And your children have no choice but to listen to you, because this is for their own protection. Like, if some environment is bad for them, you have the right to tell your children, don't go there. This is a bad negative influence upon you. So this is for generally any type of gathering. And of course, if a party itself is haram, then of course they have to remember, friend comes later, Allah comes first. So you cannot anger Allah by going to a party of your friend, thinking, no, he's my friend, I don't want to hurt his feelings. No, think about earning the anger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What about, and this is the last question, inshallah, or is, yeah, it's the last question. What about the name Taha or Yasin? Same thing. There is fabricated information. This is not authentic. Many people believe that these names, Alif, Lam, Mim, Taha, Yasin, Hamim, these are all names of the Prophet ﷺ. But that is not an authentic information. That's a fabrication, and that is not true. So these are just letters. These are not names that you're supposed to keep. Ta and Ha, or Ya and Sin. These are just two letters, right? These are not really the best of names that you should be keeping. It's like in English, A, B, C, E, F, G, X, Y, Z, right? That's literally what the name is. Okay? So, yeah, AC/DC, yeah. Then you start walking like them too. All right, inshallah ta'ala. Any last questions? Oh, yeah, brother.
Talking about women.
Yeah.
What is the take from the ulama about a woman being in a public service, like running for Congress, doing that kind of job?
No, that's not allowed because she will have to be, the brother, just so everybody hears his question, that speaking about the woman going out, let's say even when it comes to jobs, of course the woman has to have a halal job where she can preserve her hijab, preserve her Muslim dignity and honor, and not violate any rules of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala while at that work. So let's say these political positions, which require a lot of traveling from country to country, state to state, handshaking, sitting in a group of men, this is not appropriate for Muslim women to do. And this is something that the ulama, of course, has discouraged heavily, right? So these type of public political positions. If anybody wants to do them, they do it, but if you know the Islamic guidance properly and your family understands it, then inshallah ta'ala you guys implement it to the best of your ability, right? Don't look at other people. If you understand certain aspects of the religion well, you fulfill it, inshallah ta'ala, as much as you can. But this is not something that is encouraged. It is actually highly discouraged for a woman to get into these type of jobs. And then if a woman says, why not? Well, all you have to do is look at the news. Every single week, some judge has harassed, some mayor harassed, some this guy harassed, that guy harassed. This is what's going on. But Allah made rules for you so that you never enter that type of filthy environment to begin with. So if any woman wants to argue, just open the news. This is what's going on in these type of jobs. Every single week, a new harassment case is coming out, and it's been going on for years and years. They just stayed quiet about it. So Allah has protected the Muslim woman in every possible way, because Allah knows what type of evil exists. He's the one who created all of mankind, so He knows what is the best way to protect a Muslim woman, her honor, her dignity, her value and self-worth. Right? So this is, inshallah ta'ala, what you would try to explain to the women of your family. No, that's different. That is different. Let's suppose even from the Sahabiyat. When the men went for jihad and they got wounded, as Aisha radiallahu anha said, the women were the ones attending to the injuries, meaning they were the doctors for the soldiers. And we need female doctors to look after women, right? Women need female doctors to go to. But again, that would be something done in an Islamic way. You would do it in the best way possible, right? Like if your daughter is near your house, she's there, you have access to her, she comes to your house, this, that, you know what's happening. This is the best way and the correct way, right? So no problem, let her study medicine, become whatever she wants to become. She will have a lot of female patients and make it easier for her as well, for them, right? So that's something that's, the whole intention behind it is making life a little bit easier for women who also get sick, right? So this is something that you want to keep in mind, inshallah. All right.